Zach Gallen appears to be the guy. He's the ticket you would want to hold, but is he beatable in your opinion? Because we were talking about with Framber, you didn't feel like it. Okay, so
I think both, but I think there's similarity. Like they're both beatable. It's just sort of like, all right, well, you have to figure out, do I want anybody at the price to try to beat Framber Valdez? And I think your answer to that right now is like maybe some Eovaldi, Flyer, George Kirby start to start. Other than that, like, no. And there might actually come a time where you want to jam Framber Valdez because everybody else falls off. Like, what happens when Eovaldi's bad and Kirby's bad and Cole's bad? You run out of pitchers really fast. Like, you could have what's happening kind of with Josh Young in AL Rookie of the Year, where, like, he keeps going 1 for 4 with an RBI double and everybody else is falling off. Now he's like a half win ahead of everybody. And the market doesn't reflect that. And, like, he's way ahead right now. And you could have that in the NL or the AL Cy Young, and you could have it without the favorite doing anything. They could just keep doing what they're doing. They don't have to be better, but maybe the guys behind them are so flimsy that they end up far ahead because everybody fell off too. Like, that's totally possible. It hasn't happened yet. So, like, I don't know why you would bet. Like, Gallen and Justin Steele rate out identically to me right now. Gallen's advantage is he's pitched more. That's his advantage. Like, that's in terms of just what they have done up to this point in the season. Steele's also way less likely. He's not going to get traded. Stroman might get traded. So, like, scoring wise, they're the same. Name wise, pedigree wise, projection wise, they're not the same. That's why they're not priced the same. The next tier of pitcher. So I want to make sure we do 2 things the rest of the segment. The other guys and Blake Snell. Because, like, I've seen so much Blake Snell to win Cy Young, and I think everyone's insane. And everybody's like, oh, I bet 40, I bet 30. Great, you're gonna light the ticket on fire in 2 months because you're not gonna win. So, like, the other guys are all weird, and maybe none of them are going to win. But just scoring wise, Kershaw's hurt. He's apparently maybe going to start against the Mets out of the All-Star break. He got like a cortisone injection. He has shoulder inflammation. He's also very old. So, like, you want to bet him? He's the second choice, which is also a little crazy that Gallen's 240 and Kershaw's 325. That's not right. Kershaw's just short. Now, there's no way to bet that into a market that's wrong in that way, but, like, he's short and he can never bet the price. But he's hurt. Got to follow him pretty closely. He could fall out. Stroman is slip sliding and is probably going to get traded. So he becomes really irrelevant. And then the other guy in that tier, that second tier of, like, my scoring, is Logan Webb, who I actually do still think is really, really interesting. And he's 14-1. If you had to bet a pitcher right now in this market, he is the pitcher that I would bet on. He rates out extremely well in every major category. He's only slightly behind the pitchers we've already talked about, Gallen and Steele. He and Kershaw are almost identical, and Kershaw's maybe not pitching. And Logan Webb's advantage, now again, could he give up 10 earned runs out of the All-Star break? Yeah, this is not like a crystal ball prediction. But his advantage over some of these other pitchers, like Strider, is that he pitches 1 billion innings. Like, that's his thing. I don't have his inning stats up for the season. I had them up earlier, but, like, his whole thing is going into the year. He basically said, like, I want to, like, lead the majors in innings pitched. Like, that's what I want to do. And as we learned from Alcantara and other pitchers, if you do that and you're good, what a tremendous advantage over somebody like Blake Snell, who will strike out 12 guys, but he'll do it in 4 2/3 innings. And it's like, well, that's not what you want. You actually don't want that guy. You want the innings guy who's going to give you, 8 innings, 2 earned, 5 hits, 8 innings, 1 earned, 4 hit. Like, you would much strike out 5. You'd much rather have that guy than, like, Blake Snell striking out every guy. Jake writes in the chat, Logan Webb currently leads the majors in innings pitched by 7 innings, major leagues. So, like, the reason why I like him at the price is he could fold and he could be bad, but because of the way in which he pitches, that he goes deep into games, I think he does give himself an opportunity to sort of catch Zach Gallen is maybe the wrong word, but, like, compete with him for this award.
That NL Cy Young, as you start looking at those names, like, you brought up Kershaw, which I found, it's interesting that he's second, but the fact is, like you mentioned, he's injury prone. He's coming off of an injury. He's old.
He's not just prone. He's literally hurt right now.
Yeah,
that's not even prone. Yeah,
fact. So, but it's just the point that I don't know how people are putting their money on him, especially now at that price. It just doesn't make sense to me. So,
and the statistical profile's, like, definitely good. Like, he's 3rd in my scoring system. He's definitely, like, kind of within reach of Gallen and Steele. It's just, like, okay, like we
That's
can
all.
do this with we can do this with George Kirby, like he's never done it before. We can also work the problem the other way, like it's year 16. Like, is he going to do it? And again, should the price be that short? Probably not. So yeah, I mean, Logan Webb, like my sort of opinion be damned. At freezing cold takes.
But we got to get to Jake's thoughts on the NL Cy Young if he has anything. Jake, what's your take on what we were just talking about with the NL Cy Young?
Yeah, I look at this list of names, and there's an old bit from Drake and Josh in the mid 2000s that goes, "Headaches, you people give me headaches." And that's what this market gives me. Entirely just headaches, because Gallen was always the favorite, and it does not matter, and I'm holding no Zach Gallen for obvious reasons. And then speaking of trash heap, yeah, I mean, Graham Ashcraft and Mitch Keller, go join Joe Ryan and Drew Rasmussen and Jeffrey Springs on the trash heap, because that's just where my life is. And, Ken's so right about Logan Webb, though, because he's basically the NL version of Framber Valdez. He just goes 6, 7, 8 innings every single time. And oh, by the way, sometimes he's going to strike out 10 guys, and it's going to be really awesome. And he's telling you that he wants to do this and exactly what you want to do. Every other name on this list, Clayton Kershaw, currently hurt, will probably get hurt again at some other point in the future. Spencer Strider strikes out a ton of guys. We already talked about that. Great. Yippee. Good for you. Same thing with Blake Snell. Then you get Logan Webb. Green flag. Marcus Stroman, probably going to get traded. Also hasn't been very good. Zach Wheeler, ton of WAR. Also just kind of stinks and has a high WAR for some reason. Jesus Luzardo, same thing as Spencer Strider and Blake Snell. Strikes a lot of guys out. Yippee. Doesn't go deep into the game. Is out by the 6th usually. Justin Steele, have no idea what to do with him. Was injured. Question mark. Mitch Keller, trash heap. Like, it's basically Logan Webb here is the hashtag value play, because he just is a machine.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I would just add two additional notes there. I gotta turn off the Clippers Grizzlies game. I shouldn't be allowed to watch it while I'm doing the show. It's like actually a bad idea.
No, keep
there
it
are
on
two other
Jeopardy.
names. Yeah, two other names I haven't talked about. Jake referenced one there. Zach Wheeler, and Mensch referenced high WAR. This is going to be like a little in the weeds statistically, but just so people like really understand when you look at a set of stats for baseball, what's happening. So there are two types of WAR. There's F WAR and B WAR. And what they refer to is that one is from Fangraphs and one is from Baseball Reference. And you will look at them for different players, especially for pitchers, and you'll be like, I don't understand how one can be first in one and like 50th in another. Like, how is that possible? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it's because they each use a different statistic to calculate pitcher WAR. So like when they are ranking their pitchers, when they're scoring them, they are using a completely different set of criteria. Baseball Reference uses runs allowed per 9, which is like what actually happened in the game. Like what actually happened totally, the total collection of what happened in the game. And Fangraphs doesn't use that. They use FIP, which is basically everything that the pitcher has control over. So any ball that's in play is eliminated. So you will have like a complete contrast, especially in the middle of the season, with certain pitchers. So like Zach Wheeler is like the god, GAWD, of having a really like awesome FIP, but the actual game of baseball, he sucks. Like what actually happened in the game's bad. But but it's like the stuff he can control, he's really good. Well, voters have this thing where they like to vote for the people who are actually good, not the people who are like good in a laboratory. Like not the people who are good on like expected goals in soccer. No, I care about who actually scored the goals. That's what I care about. So like when you see the F WAR for somebody and you see the B WAR for somebody and you're like, I don't understand how they can be so different. Zach Wheeler is 2nd in one and 29th in the other one. So just like, because one is like sort of trying to get to like a core number by excluding plays. And one is more like, well, what actually happened though? And what actually happened though tends to be more predictive of what voters like to do than, but like if you look at it this way, he's actually really good. And that doesn't really tend to fly from a voting standpoint. It's one of the reasons why FIP is one of the least predictive metrics of the kind of the core major ones in terms of who wins. So like Wheeler is definitely that guy in the NL where like you'll see exactly what Jake is talking about. You see it with Strider a little bit too. And it's like, oh, but like he should be. It's almost like, well, he should be really good. Be like, yeah, but the thing is he wasn't. So, and that's who they're going to vote. Sorry, like that's not fair. And in the AL, that guy's Gaussman, And it was Gaussman last year too. And it was Wheeler last year too. He's first in FIP. So does it surprise you that in the one that uses FIP, he is first? And in the one of what actually happened, he is 15th. So just like, that's why it's problematic. And the market is shaped completely around the FIP driven one. That's why Strider's really low priced. That's why Gaussman's really low priced. Well, eventually they'll pitch really well and it'll all regress and even out. It just doesn't tend to work like that. You wish it is predictive, like the guys will start pitching better. Usually doesn't have to work that way. Just kind of always keep in mind, like, well, what actually happened? Like in all of the game, not just the stuff that the pitcher has control over. The voters, I would say, aren't that smart, but it's not that so much as like the award goes to what actually happened in totality most of the time, instead of like, well, if you look at it through this prism, he was actually the best. No prisms, just what actually happened, and that usually tends to give you a better idea.